And why am I saying kingdom here? Well, as we go through Daniel, if we go back one chapter, Daniel 7, and we look at verses 16 and 17, and can someone read that and just kind of walk us through that?
Verse number 16 of Daniel chapter 7 says, I came near unto one of them that stood by, and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me, and made me know the interpretation of the things. These great beasts, which are four kings which shall arise out of the earth. And then if we skip down to verse 23, it says, Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be a fourth kingdom upon earth.
Mm-hmm.
So if we let the Bible interpret itself, a beast symbolizes a king or a kingdom. So in Daniel chapter 8, when we see these beasts, a ram and a he-goat, these are kingdoms.
Okay.
I also just want to point out, too, a very important point that came out in 16, is that sometimes the Bible talks in figures, things that would break natural law. He-goat that's doing a bunch of things that a normal animal wouldn't do, or looks like an animal that isn't on this earth, breaks natural law. And so that gives us an indication that we need to go and look for the interpretation of that figure. And this is exactly what the angel is giving us right here. There was a bunch of figures earlier in the chapter of chapter 7, and now Daniel comes to the angel and says, I want to know the truth of this, and so he made me to know the interpretation. So that's what we have to do as diligent students. So when we see a figure, go and look for the interpretation in the Bible.
I think that's a really good point, and that brings us to one of Miller's rules. And if we take a look at rule number 11, Miller's rule number 11, which Ellen White says, if we are to be preaching the three angels' messages, we will use Miller's rules in order to do this.
Mm-hmm.
How to know when a word is used figuratively, exactly like you said, if it makes good sense as it stands and does no violence to the simple laws of nature, then it must be understood literally, if not figuratively.
Mm-hmm. And these are rules that were compiled simply while he was studying the scripture and finding the points in the scripture that told him how to study it. These were not made up rules that he thought would make sense, but rather this was something that he found in the Bible that said, take it as a figure if it breaks natural law. And there's Bible verses beside each rule.